Let me just bring you two kinds of thinking. In the world, there are two kinds of thinking. One is linear, one is cyclical or cyclical. Linear is the thinking of the Greek, and most of the Western world is linear thinking. We think in line. So we look at the past as the past and never to be repeated in the future. We think that way. In fact, magdodraw tayo ng line about line graph of history. We normally would write this out. But if you're a Jew, your thinking is not linear. Your thinking is in cycle. And you know, history will repeat itself at one point. Again, that's very true in the book of Judges, the book of Kings. Everything in this world is in circle. Your watch is cyclical unless it's digital, right? Right? This world is always rotating. You always have Monday. It will repeat itself, Monday to Sunday and then Monday again, right? So, marami sa atin, we are thinking Greek. And I'm a Greek thinker in the past. Even to this day, I would always have rationality to it. But putting things to become having a Hebraic mindset, it's kind of parang different because Jews think also in cycles and signs. Say signs, cycles, and signs. So the Greek signs are foolishness, right? The Greek ask for wisdom. The Jews look. The Greeks look for wisdom. The Jews look for signs. And I believe at one point we have to merge the two to become a great thinker. Okay, but we should not just close our minds to signs. Mahirap yung when you are rational and all of a sudden naglagay ka ng sign to say, oh, everything can be explained rationally. And when we look at the heavens and we say, oh, natural phenomenon. I think we have to think a little Hebrew in the way we look at things. Okay? Especially first century Hebraic mindset. So today, there have been so many discussions on the 4 blood moons, otherwise known also as the tetrad, as termed by NASA itself. We have heard some of the discussions about this on many radio stations and television broadcasts, including some secular television stations like Fox News. And it was actually Pastor Mark Biltz who broke the news on this way back in 2008. Then several books were written and many web postings were also done on the subject. Actually, I heard about this as early as late 2008. And I've been listening about this blood moons discussion with a little salt to it, but also not closing my mind to see what the scriptures say about these things. So this was further on as further on by Pastor John Hagee of Cornerstone Church in San Antonio, Texas. The discussion was taken to the heights. Why? Because he taught a series on the 4 blood moons in his church and aired this on his daily television broadcasts. How many of you have watched him talk about this? And a lot of times it was repeated or replayed. Also, he furthered this by writing his book on the blood moons. There are a lot of books on the blood moons, and this became a bestseller. However, on the other hand, there have been several negative reactions about the tetrad, which you can also watch on the YouTube and read on some books. The thing is, what's the fuss about the 4 blood moons? Everybody's excited about this. I was watching GMA News last time, and they're talking about this phenomenon that will happen in October, the night of October 8th. The second blood moon to happen this year. So why create some fuss about these when these things are simply ordinary. And natural phenomenons in the heaven. Or ano lang, for us to really gaze upon and look at the beauty of the universe. Now, are the proponents of the blood moons some kind of an alarmist? Or are they simply just overreacting? Or they really know something that most of us don't because we don't have in-depth knowledge about it. I would say we don't have a knowledge, much more in-depth knowledge. So these are things that are very important for us to look into. However, before we can judge things, this is my attitude, before we can ever judge things, we really need to take time to study about this and study it well. Say, study it well. Some people have accused me of being cultic ever since I opened these things to the public in 2010. Praise Revival Center, sila dyan, kulto. Mag-ingat kayo kay Pastor Festin, as if nangangain ako ng tao. Okay? You can always, people have judged me by not listening to me. You got to listen to the words you teach before you judge somebody and see how things are scriptural. We always use the scriptures because the scriptures will always speak for itself, right? We only have to bring out the scriptures. So we have to look at the Bible for ourselves and not really close our minds to the understanding of these signs. And actually, this is what your host have done. Since I've heard about this, I just didn't read some books. I studied it from the scriptures, also went to NASA to look at it for myself. I look at it based on my study or understanding of prophecy and the signs that you see in the scriptures. So ever since 2008, late 2008 or early 2009, I've also taught this to our congregation. It's not just a new thing because this is already in the season. That's why I'm joining in. No, I did my assignment. And also after a while of studies, and I got convinced that there's something to it, that I started to teach that to the congregation. I'm not a guy who would just teach it. I take time to study it. And when I know that there's something here biblically, that's the time I'll teach it. Because I've been convinced the moment I teach it to the people. So everybody's got to study. Do our homework about this. I did a lot of research too on these matters. So I cannot go discuss to you everything in 45 minutes. But the ones I will give to you this morning is something for you to think about and reflect on. Let's start off with this. Let's look at the basic principle from the Word of God about blood moons. Okay? Or I would say signs even in the heavens. We'll have to go back to Genesis. Genesis chapter 1, the source of everything, verse 14. And let me read this to you from the NIV. Actually, in the 1984 edition. And this is still my NIV Bible. I'm not reading from the 2011 because there's something that I don't like really in the new NIV translation 2011. But in edition 1984, it says here, "Let there be lights in the expanse of the sky to separate the day from the night, and let them serve as signs to mark seasons, days, and years." How many of you have read this from the NIV or even the New King James? Let them serve as signs to mark up seasons, days, and years. So God had created all the lights in the heavens, the moon, the stars, the planets, everything there that you see in the night sky, and even during daytime, the sun. God says, let them serve as signs to mark seasons, days, and years. Now, the question is, anong ibig sabihin signs to mark seasons? Normally, we think in winter, spring, summer, or fall, right? But at creation, during that time, Adam was created, there were no 4 seasons. They only happened after the flood, that all these things came about. There was only one season of the earth. Okay? So wala pang ganito. And you don't need signs to mark season, days, and years. Do you need to have the moon turn to blood to tell you it's summertime? You don't need signs in the heavens to tell you that the climate is changing. Now it's summer, now it's winter. Kasi nag-eclipse 3 weeks ago announcing us that it is already rainy season in the Philippines. Do you need signs to tell you about the shiftings of the seasons in the earth? No. It just happens. We just accept it. Okay, magpapasko na, lalamig na, winter time in most places. But let me give you the 2011 edition. Medyo may pagbabago nito, which is something that I like here. Let there be lights in the expanse of the sky to separate day from the night, and let them serve as signs to what? Mark sacred times, days and years. So, there is a change from the same version or translation of Genesis 1:14. It becomes clear to mark what kind of times? Sacred times, days, and years. So here, just looking at translations, it's not just the ordinary seasons. It has to do with sacred. Say sacred. Now look at how. What I would like to bring out here is the Hebrew word. I'd like us to look at the Hebrew word for seasons. That's why it gets to be translated here. Sa version na ito as sacred. It's moedim. How many of you are familiar with that word, moedim? That is plural, singular is moed. Okay? Sabi natin moedim. Not moedim, but moedim. Moedim or moed. Okay? Or moed. Some will pronounce it that way. What does moed or moedim means? Well, it means God's appointed seasons, look at this, of gathering and doing holy convocations. Itong ibig sabihin ng moedim. Let them be for signs, for God's divinely appointed seasons. There are seasons that God appointed for His people down on earth to gather together and make holy convocations. Say, gather together. We should recognize the time when we should be coming together. Some people don't like coming together anymore. Maraming sumusobra dun sa Hebraic rules or Messianic understanding that they don't gather anymore. There's a group in Manila, they don't gather anymore as a church because you don't find church in the Bible, the gathering. So they divide it into smaller groups. They only meet once in a while during one of the important seasons. But they don't meet every week. The Lord's Day or Shabbat, and we carry it over to Sunday. I don't have problem with Sunday to gather together to gather and to make holy convocations. Now, what do you mean by convocations? It simply means rehearsals. Say rehearsals. Oops. To gather together and make rehearsals. Because there will be one great day when everything down here on earth will not be rehearsed or rehearsals anymore. That's why people who don't like the rapture and they say the rapture will not happen, they got a big problem theologically. Because everything that we are doing as a body here will be fulfilled at the rapture. The rapture is called the gathering. There's another thing. You don't like rapture because that's not in the Bible. Use the word gathering. That's why in Hebrews chapter 10:25, we are told not to neglect the assemblings of ourselves together or the gathering of the saints. Because we are looking to the day of His coming. The final event will happen at the rapture. Everything that happens here on earth are all rehearsals. Hello. We're simply passing through. So we know when we are to be gathering ourselves together. So it's important for us to know the moedim of God. But let me tell you that the word moedim or moed is also translated in Hebrew or in English as feasts. As the feasts of Jehovah or feasts of the Lord that you find in the Bible. All Passover up to Sukkot. All are moedim. So it's not just simply feast, as to say, okay, let's have a celebration. No, God's saying, you must learn how to gather yourselves together during my feast. In fact, one of the requirements of God in the book of Leviticus is that I will have to see all you men appear before me 3 times a year. Not empty-handed. All of you from all Israel, all men will bring people during the times of the feasts of God. All the categories, Passover, Shavuot, Sukkot, and all the feasts included in the categories. So you see, these are important things. Ignorante mga Kristiyano, we should know how to gather ourselves together during one of the feasts of God. And we gather in the name of Yeshua to rehearse. Amen. Passover, what do we do on Passover? Called Holy Week. We gather ourselves to remind ourselves of the love of Jesus Christ who died for us. Shavuot is a picture of the church. There was a question yesterday about the rapture. Actually, still I would say, though the picture of the rapture is seen in Rosh Hashanah, but definitely the second coming of Christ riding the white horse will happen on Rosh Hashanah. But the rapture principle, you can find them in all of the feasts of God. From Passover to Sukkot, you can find all them there. So I would say, get ready. Anytime this season comes, the rapture can happen anytime. Although strong picture will be Rosh Hashanah, but I have another alternate, and that is Shavuot. But you can see the rapture principle all from the feasts of the Lord. You with me? I believe the rapture will happen in one of those feasts, strongly. It may be Rosh Hashanah. It may be Shavuot. It may be Passover. But during the season, it's very important. So, for us to gather ourselves together and never neglect the assembling of ourselves. If you don't like the gathering on earth, you will not like the gathering that will happen in the air. If you don't have a church to belong to, an assembly to belong to, you have a problem. Because Jesus will gather us as a church, as a body, as a kihila in the air. So if you don't like the gathering here, you may not like the gathering upstairs. Meet the Mahdi on earth. Meet the Antichrist here on earth. He will welcome you without your head. Okay? So I don't want to be left behind. We're looking forward to the coming of the Lord. Amen? But let's move on. Let's talk about the signs that marks the season. So the Moedim. So there are Moedims, but there are also signs of the Moedim. Say signs. That mark the seasons or the Moedim of God. Now the Hebrew word for sign is a derivative of the word uth. But this is how it is used here is oath. Say oath. Oath. There is a O sound. Oath. Okay? Say oath. Like taking an oath. Oath. And you find the 3 Hebrew consonants or letters there. From right to left is Aleph, Vav, Tav. That is very interesting. Because in the Hebrew, if you have learned Hebrew, that is Aleph, Ve, Tav. Another way to say it is the beginning and the end. Alpha and Omega. You see that? Aleph is the beginning word. Ve can be, the Vav can be a conjunction. And Tav. It's Aleph, the beginning letter, and Tav, the last letter of the Hebrew alphabet. So you find Alpha and Omega here in the word oath. How many of you know that Jesus was God's sign for the people of Israel? So it's very interesting that these are all connected to Jesus Christ. Now, oath has a sense of appearing. Or oath is the root. It has a sense of appearing. Something is appearing. Jesus came to appear before man. It speaks of a signal, a mark, a miraculous sign, an omen, a token, or a warning of something to come. So take a look at this word, that is oath, signs. So we can put all this in this way. God made the moon, the sun, the stars, and the planets to be what? Do you have it on? You don't have that? God put everything, the moon, the sun, the stars, and the planets to be signals or warning signs to the people down on earth so that they can understand that His appointed season is arriving, or in fact has arrived, and that we, the people down on earth, must gather or ready themselves to gather together in order to meet Him. That's the reason for all the feasts of the Lord. All Israel will gather in Jerusalem to meet with God at the temple. They will gather and bring offerings to God. So, God says these are signs. Recognize the signs, the oath, so that you will here on earth know my season is arriving or already has arrived, and I must find you in the gathering. Hello. That's why all the feasts, all the 7 feasts are holy convocations. God is returning the knowledge of the feasts in the last days. For what reason? Because Jesus is coming very soon. Hello. I believe once we know how to gather, this is the time of Passover, we should gather together. It's Shavuot, it's Rosh Hashanah, we should be gathering together. It's Sukkot, we should be gathering together. The more you are used to that, you are rehearsing, and that you are announcing to the Lord, we are ready, God, for your coming. Hello. And some people will judge you for going back to being Jewish, never understanding that the future are all here. How many of you are excited with the coming of Jesus? I'm all the more excited to the coming of my Messiah by understanding all this. Hello. It's a mystery, hidden, but in the end times, it will all be revealed to our understanding. This is why God has to restore everything before Jesus Christ comes back again. Thank God you are here. Look around and say, thank God you are here this morning. So, when you know how to read Hebrew, you don't have a problem about this. It's all very clear in the Hebrew. The problem is with the translation. Our Bible is not an English Bible. We have English translations of the Bible. Our Bible is written in Hebrew, in Greek, and a little Aramaic. Hello. Right? And thank God, with me, a Hebrew student still, when I read the Bible in Hebrew, I'm starting to pick up some things, and you find out that, wow, medyo, you will really recognize this should have been translated this way. You yourself can say, I think this is translated not very well. Okay? The Hebrew goes this way, for let them be signs to mark of days and seasons. Transliterated, don't laugh at this. You find oath there. Okay? Lay oath thought, meaning that becomes plural. Okay? So it's signs. Don't laugh and say utot. Lay otot, ulay moedim, ulay yamim, ve shnayim. So 2 signs of the moedim and the days yamim, ve shanim, in years. So to signal sacred seasons, Davao, literally, it means to signal sacred seasons and the days and the years. I'm taking it slowly. I hope you can get it, but time is ticking away. So there are indeed, based from the Hebrew, the way you will read it, there are indeed signs and miraculous signs or omens in the heavens that will announce God's sacred times and seasons. And we must be able to read the signs or the signs of the times. Look at somebody, your imantapal, and say, you must learn how to read the signs. And it's only one's ignorance that will stop a person from knowing this truth, that even the Lord Jesus Christ wanted the people of His time to know. Sabi niya, you Jews, you know how to read signs. You know to read the signs of the heavens and, you know, the weather. It will be sunny or it will be rainy. You know how to know the signs of the sky or the climate, but you don't know how to read the signs of the times. And that's the reason why they did not accept Him. They failed to read the signs. And I believe Jesus Christ is telling us today, you must learn to read the signs of the times. Because Jesus is a Jew, He's Hebrew, and He still gives signs. Kaya lang, if you're a Greek thinker, nagkataon lang yan, okay, natural occurrences. Okay, be satisfied, watch as much as you want. And you don't see anything God is speaking to you. Okay, let's look at the moon. Because we will be talking about the moon in a while. The part that the moon plays in the seasons. The part that the moon plays in the seasons. When I say seasons, again, I'm talking to Moedim. Say Moedim. The divinely appointed times of God. Let's go to the book of Psalm 104, verse 19, and let's read firstly from the NIV, 1984 edition. The moon, take a look at this. Can we read this together? 1, 2, 3. The moon marks off the seasons, and the sun knows when to go down. See the underline? The moon marks off the seasons. Seasons, Moedim. Okay? That's from the NIV. New King James. He appointed the moon for seasons. The moon marks off the seasons. According to NIV, New King James says, God, He appointed the moon for seasons, for Moedim. So, it's very important for us to know the function of the moon in relations to the Moedim. In fact, even to these days, there are still Jews who will not follow the calendar. If they like to know the month, they would like to look at the sky and find the first sliver of the moon there to mark off Rosh Chodesh. That is the new moon or the new month. And that's how they decide, oops, it's already Abib, or this is already Passover, this is already Shavuot, or this is already the beginning of Rosh Hashanah. They will look at the sky. To say, if you have met Nehemiah, he's still looking at the moon, the start of the seasons. We're not based on the calendar. Mali ang calendar, pag measure, because automatic na lang calendar, but still we'll be looking at the moon. Now, let's look at the word seasons here. Again, it's Moedim. But let's consider the word mark. Let the moon marks of the seasons. That word is also translated as appointed. And the Hebrew word is asa. Say asa. How many of you have heard of King Asa or Asa? Asa. Okay, that's the Hebrew word. Asa is a broad word, but generally meaning work or to do. So asa is a broad word, but generally the meaning is work, trabaho, or you have something to do. You have been appointed the task. So yan ang ginamit to mark, that is to asa the Moedim. So it can also be translated this way. This is my way of translating it. The moon works out the seasons of God. Or the moon appoints the divine seasons. So look at the moon. It shows us, it works to show us the divine seasons of God. So don't just say, the moon has been there as para lang siyang satellite to give light to the earth. nighttime. Oh, more than that, God has a purpose for the moon. Okay? So, God has given the moon its special mission. And the moon, since the time of creation, has not failed God even to this day. Say, the moon has not failed God. In fact, God himself acknowledged that the moon has been his faithful witness in the Hashemayim, that is, the heavens. Let me give you this verse, Psalm 89:37. It will be established forever like the moon, the faithful witness in the sky. In one version, I forgot the version, it says that the moon is my faithful witness in the sky. Oops. It will be established forever like the moon, thee, or my faithful witness in the sky, or the heavens, Selah. You know, by the way, sing it ko lang. You always notice the word in the Psalms, Selah, di ba? Some will say, what is that? It's a measure of a song. It means pause. But there's a mountain called Selah in Israel, and it points to a mighty mountain, an immovable mountain. And one of my professors in Hebrew will say, whenever you find that, it's not just giving you a little pause. It means because this is a song. It shows that this cannot be stopped. This is established like a mountain. You always look at Selah kung kailan ginamit. Whenever it's there, it talks about how mighty is God. Selah. How strong the righteous will be. Selah. It brings out, you will be like a mighty mountain. Nobody will be able to bring that thing down. Okay? Kumbaga, that is a stamp of God to say, it is something that cannot be brought down. Okay? So, the truth is that the moon is the faithful witness of God in the heavens. And that cannot be changed. You know, the moon can even teach us strongly what faithfulness is all about. If you like to study what faithfulness or how to become faithful, study the moon. God says, the moon is my faithful witness. Okay, so the truth about faithfulness, what is faithfulness? Singit lang po ito. Faithfulness is always being there for God. If you like to know what it is, simply, it's always being there for God. You're always available for God. If God tells you to do something, you say, yes, sir, I'm here. That's being faithful. You don't say anymore, you don't say any arguments, you don't fight with God, but you're always present. When God looks for you, you're always there. Sa trabaho that God has assigned you, you're always there. You're never leaving the place. That is what faithfulness is all about. Umalis na ba ang buwan? You can always expect the moon, when the moon will be full moon, half moon, or quarter, or whatever. Or new moon. It's always there. So like the moon, a person who is faithful, listen, is never complaining, never rebelling, but consistently doing what God has told him to do without fail, and always being there for God when needed. With this kind of faithfulness, God had given the moon as an example. In fact, the moon is, he said, Yikon Olam, established forever. Okay? Like the moon, faithful witness. The moon is Yikon Olam, established forever. So, let's learn from the moon. Listen to the voice of the moon when it's signaling the seasons in the heavens, because the moon is always faithful to tell us, hey, gather. Hey, look up. Hey, it's your time to meet with God. Now, let's talk about signs in the heavens. Are you still with me? Okay, I'm just page 3 of my notes. But I hope you will pardon me to finish this, because this is the last session anyway. Signs in the heavens. How many of you know that the maker of the heavens had put up signs there? Up there, not just on the earth, but up in the heaven. in the heavens to announce sacred seasons ahead. And they're not just there for the people to gaze upon and to marvel at, but to read the signs. Is there anything that God is saying us with this? Always ask that question. Is there something God is speaking to us with these unusual signs? How many of you ever drive up to Baguio? I came from Manila. I'm from Manila. But my first time to drive in Baguio was in 1990. It's all written in my book. I have talked about road signs, the second book that I wrote. But the first time I drove to Baguio, I tell you, it happened in the most unfriendliest way and incongruous fashion and season. It happened after the earthquake of 1990. You know, July 1990, and many thousands of people died in Baguio, right? And Baguio got isolated because maraming impassable roads, plus there came a typhoon. The people in Baguio were seeking help. And some of them, many of them are Christians. So our church in Manila decided, okay, one Sunday we raised funds. One Sunday, it was called Holy Sunday, Hold Up Sunday, Holy Hold Ups. Because whatever you have in your pockets, give them all for the people in Baguio. We raised up how many millions during that time. And within that week, we started to buy rice. So eventually, we filled up 19 trucks, 16-wheeler trucks. So we decided that we will go to Baguio 2 weeks after, 3 weeks after, because the people there are starving, especially the Christians. So we decided those who are afraid, you don't have to go because of the road condition. You have to believe that God will be with you. Oh, so many came, volunteered, 19 trucks, plus 4 more vehicles to guide the trucks, at least to protect the trucks. I was in one of those vehicles that would go to the front and then back. We were there, and I tell you, we traveled early morning, I think around 4 o'clock. Yeah, it was not easy to travel in that condition. It was raining so hard. And I tell you, the only road passable was Nagilian Road up in the Ilocos Norte in Bawang. We reached there. We came to Bawang with that group of people, with those convoy. Obviously, you're not traveling fast. We reached that place around siguro probably 10 o'clock in the evening. And we're there, the food, we had a little break, we ate, and then we're ready to go. I tell you, we take turns driving. And it was my turn that night, dark, rainy, to handle this vehicle for me to drive. And that tired, sleepy, first time to drive Baguio in the night. And I said to go, oh. Okay, so that was my turn. I think we started about 11 night going up Baguio for 2 hours. Every 2 hours we changed drive, but it was my turn. You know, you're tired. Sometimes you get kind of sleepy, but I said I'm going to drive. And the only way, unfamiliar road, first time to drive in that, the only, I would say, kasi hindi mo makita, it's foggy. You cannot even see the trucks ahead of you. But thank God there were road signs ahead. And I would know how the roads will be. If you've been to Baguio, and you've been in San Nagilian Road, you see the many U-turns signs, the S turns, the Z turns, the double Z turns, the question mark turns, the double question mark turns. Mas grabe pa dyan, ang mga may paganon-ganon pa. And you have to trust the road signs. You got to listen. Pag sinabing warning, cut on road, dito ka lang sa side. You have to do that. Finally, I was able to finish. I drove for over 2 hours, and I got replaced by some guy. We reached Baguio at 4 o'clock in the morning. We traveled for over 24 hours. But you got to touch the road signs. The road engineers did not put those signs for nothing. Right? It tells you, those will tell you what's up ahead. You better listen to the signs. How many of you know that God knows the future? If the engineers here would put signs, you better listen. Pag sinabing sleepy road, you better listen. Dito lang ang maximum speed, you better listen. They constructed the road. They know how the road would be. But ikaw motorist, hindi mo alam. But the engineers had gone ahead of you. God has gone ahead of us and had revealed to us, and He knows the future, and revealing things to us as we go along. But the signs are up there in the heavens. We must be able to read the signs. The maker of the universe had put those signs and warnings in the heavens. We must learn to listen. Look around and say, we must learn to listen. Or I would say, read the signs. Now, through thousands of years, the Jewish people, listen carefully, had been faithful keepers of the signs. They have always been there. They have kept the marks, or they have been keepers of the signs. They knew how to read the signs in the heavens to this day. Although secular, may mga religious who always look at the signs. Now, what the rabbis believed for hundreds of years regarding the heavenly signs are these. Okay, next slide, please. What the rabbis believed for hundreds of years regarding the heavenly signs, number one, they believe, firstly, that when there is a solar eclipse, God has a warning to the world, most especially when it occurs on one of the special days of Israel. So when there is a solar eclipse, God has a warning to the world. Most especially when it occurs on one of the special days of Israel, related to Israel. So solar eclipse, warning to the world. Say solar eclipse, warning to the world. There's an omen to the world. Second, they believe that when there is a lunar eclipse that turns the moon to blood, that is total lunar eclipse, God has a warning to Israel, most especially when it happens on a special day of Israel. And we better listen to these rabbis. In the Mishnah, they wrote about this. So we listen because they have been observers and keepers of this. Right? Now, let's, did you get it? Basta solar eclipse, world. Lunar eclipse, Israel. When they especially happens during special days related to Israel, or one of the feasts of the Lord. Okay? Now let's move on to the second. What time do I have? Okay lang, Pastor Dong? The signs in the heavens in the 21st century. Signs in the heavens. How many of you are living in the 20th century? No, wala na, no? 21st century. Welcome everybody. We are in the 21st century and we are about to go to 2015. So, firstly, under this point is that we are presently living within the period of the blood moons. This time, we are currently and presently living within the blood moons. The tetrad, 4 lunar tetrads, that will happen or occur around 2014 and 2015. Okay? So 2014, it already happened. First was April 15, Passover. Oh, April 15, yeah, Passover. And Tabernacles, second one will occur next week, October 8th. That is the eve of Tabernacles. And then 2015 will be repeated again, interestingly, Passover again. April 4 will be Passover next year. And then Tabernacles, again, September 28. So, for everybody's information, now, a lunar eclipse, we know, is when the earth casts its shadow on the moon, turning it to appear red, like really blood red. How many of you seen a total lunar eclipse? The last time I saw was, I think, I was 10 or 11 years old. After that, siguro partial lang. We missed the last one kasi cloudy dito sa Davao. It will be clear here in Davao for 2 hours. From 6, I think? 6:30 to 8:30. I hope that the sky will cooperate. Okay? The clouds, there will not be any clouds for us to see it here. So, again, let me emphasize this to you. One of the things you have to note about the heavenly bodies, that God had set them up for signs that at the time they were created. Again, Genesis 1:14. They were there right from the very beginning. So, before we talk further about the blood moon, let me just refer to the prophet Joel. Anybody will be teaching about prophecy, end-time prophecy, will always quote from the book of Joel, right? Joel is a book that people will not miss. So Joel prophesied about signs and wonders in the heavens that will occur before, say before, the Great Tribulation. Not during. Yeah, there will be also these occurrences during the Great Tribulation, but there will be signs and wonders in the heavens that will occur before the Great Tribulation, before the 7-year Great Tribulation. Joel chapter 2, 30-31. You're familiar with this. I will show wonders in the heavens and on the earth, blood and fire and billows of smoke. 31, the sun will be turned to darkness and the moon to blood before the coming, before, say before. Before the coming of the great and terrible day of the Lord. What is that great and terrible day of the Lord? It's not one day. It talks about the judgment time of God or period of God. And we know that the Great Tribulation is a time of judgment. Yes or no? Time of pouring of wrath. So it's not just really, literally one day. It's a period of time before the great and terrible day of the Lord. And that is the Great Tribulation. Claro? So there will be signs to warn everybody before the Antichrist ever rules the earth. We better listen to God, to the signs. So these wonders will be seen before the coming great day of the Lord. The sun will turn to darkness and the moon to blood. Now, many Christians are so focused also on blood moons that they fail to see something. The sun already turned many times to darkness in the last decade. You will not probably notice this because everybody's just talking about the blood moons. But prior to this, from 2008 to 2009, the sun turned to darkness. 3 significant solar eclipses that this church has observed. We miss out the first August 1, but the effects of 2008, we have seen that. Okay, first is August 1, 2008. Following year, it was in July 22. They're all total solar eclipses. July 22, 2009. The third was July 11, 2010. 3 years, say 3 years in a row, consecutively. And 3 is the number of God. Right? Now, amazingly, this was how the solar eclipses were seen. We have observed it here in the church. On August 1, 2008, it was seen on the northern hemisphere of the world. It appeared northern hemisphere. That is actually NASA's photo. Now, what happened September 2008? Right there in that region where there was a solar eclipse, I tell you, the effects. Financial meltdown of 2008 on the nations like America, Canada, Russia, Europe, Japan, all in the northern hemisphere. Okay? Second, on July 22, 2009, it was seen, Central Hemisphere. Passed through the Central Hemisphere of the world. And what happened during 2008? 2009. After that, I will tell you, storms, natural storms and calamities hitting the nations in the Central Hemisphere like Cambodia, Vietnam, India, Philippines, so on. When was Undoy? 2009, September. Yes, no? Undoy that hit Manila, Luzon, 2009. After this solar eclipse, the last, July 11, 2010, it was seen on the Southern Hemisphere. I tell you, the effects were earthquakes on nations down Southern Hemisphere, like Christchurch, New Zealand, Chile, and so on. 3 years, it was seen north, central, southern. God warned the world, don't touch my people, Israel. And tell you immediately, just a couple of months after, you have seen all of these effects. And 3 is the number of God. God has warned the entire earth. And everybody just observe, okay, solar eclipses, wow, wonderful thing. Now, if you may not see anything significant about these dates. If you are looking from the Gregorian calendar, August 1, 2008, July 22, 2009, July 11, 2010, anong significance in the Gregorian calendar? Nothing. Oh, unless you look at the Hebrew calendar. Then this will amaze you. Let me just give you the religious calendar of Israel, the feast months, that covers the first 7 months. For you to be familiar with the Jewish calendar, flash it on screen. First month of the religious calendar is Nisan. Nisan, Iyar, Sivan, Tammuz, Av, Elul, Tishri. We are at Tishri right now. Nisan is around March, April, the time of the Passover. So Nisan, Iyar, Sivan, Tammuz, Av, Elul, Tishri. Kailan nag-appear itong mga ito in the Jewish calendar? All these solar eclipses, they are seen differently in the Gregorian calendar, but in the Hebrew calendar, they all happen on just one same day. Av, the 5th month, and it is Av 1. Any significance with Av, Pastor Deepak? Okay, say 1st of Av. They all happen the first day of the 5th month. All seen, solar eclipses, all happening on just the same date on the Jewish calendar. Now, if you're Gentile, nothing. But if you're Jew, and it all happened on this same date in 3 years, you see something here. Now, let me tell you, and listen carefully, because the month of Av, the 5th month, is the most dreaded month in Jewish history. Especially Av 9, Tesha B'Av. Okay? The 9th of Av. Why? Well, according to Jewish record, the 9th of Av was the day Joshua and Caleb, with the rest of the 10 spies, returned from spying the land of Canaan. And they reported to Moses. It happened on Av 9, when all Israel rejected the promised land. Av 9. So, what is interesting, Av 9 became a cursed day for the Jews, even seen in their history. So some very significant events falling in Av 9 for the Jewish people. Solomon's temple was destroyed by the Babylonian Av 9, 586 BC. Eventually exiling all of the Jews to Babylon. Second temple was destroyed, Herod's temple, by the Romans, Av 9 AD 70. Oops. Yeah, Holocaust, the modern. Bar Kokhba revolt, the final revolt of the Jews against the Romans that destroyed in Av 9 AD 135. Countless Jews died or killed. Israel was turned to Syria, Palestina. The first crusade that killed 10,000 Jews in the Holy Land was Av 9, 10,092. The expulsion of the Jews from England in 1290 happened also Av 9. The Holocaust also happened Av 9, 1932. Yeah. So it's a dreaded month for the Jewish people kapag pumapasok ang Av, especially warning you the first day of Av. And it all happened Av 9. Hello? Is God consistent with calendar? We don't see that sa mga kalendaryo natin. Even the Syrian war, I think the first Syrian war, the recent Syrian war, first Syrian war that happened against Israel happened also at Av 9. Okay, so this is very interesting. You with me? So God, the sun had turned to darkness already. But let's look at the blood moon. So you're still with me? I'm taking the time of Pastor Ken. The blood moons and solar eclipses in 2014, 2015. Again, let me show you that schedule. The tetrad. Passover, first time it happened for April 15. Okay. And it happened Passover. October 8th, again, which is Tishrei 15 this year. October 8th, Eve 2014. Next year will be April 4, 2015. Mark in your calendar. On the Jewish calendar, this is Nisan 15, Passover, and September 28, again Tishrei 15, Sukkot again. Now, this will occur 2 years in a row, falling on the same two important feasts. Now, some people say coincidences lang. I would say yes, if it only happens in 2014, one time, you may say, coincidences lang. But it gets repeated the following year, falling on these same dates. I tell you, this more than coincidences. Even the 3 solar eclipses, they're more than coincidences. This is beyond human control. How many of you know that only God has control over the movement of the planet? From the day it was created. Everything is measured mathematically. That's why you can go ahead, NASA can project when more tetrads or more eclipses will happen in the future, because they can calculate the whole movement of the planets or the entire universe. God has mathematically assigned the movement of the planet since it was created, knowing in 2014, 2015, God said, oops, this is the day, very important. I will put my marks here, or my signs, for people on the earth to see. Only God. Now, man may be able to control the climate, but never the movement of the planet. Only God determines those. Only God has the power to do so. So, they are not coincidences. So, what happens just some few weeks after April 15, the first appearance of the blood moon? What happened? 3 Hebrew kids were abducted and murdered. Hamas started firing thousands of rockets, and Israel declared war against Hamas, May and up to around July. Now you got ISIS. First blood moon pa lang, mga kapatid. The second one is coming. There will be 2 more coming next year. And I tell you, God is telling the church as this season, gather together, seek my face, pray, make a holy convocation. Who knows after this, Jesus comes. Amen. Hello. But I'll tell you, there are also solar eclipses that will happen next year. Okay? Look at this. March 20, 2015. This is the eve of Nisan 1, the beginning of the calendar, of the Jewish religious calendar. Nisan 1, total eclipse, the beginning of the feast month. September 13, there will be a partial eclipse happening on the eve of Rosh Hashanah. Oops. So you see that picture. The sun will turn to darkness, the moon to blood. All happening within 2 years. And Mark Bilt says there will not be any more tetrads like this that will fall on the Jewish feasts in this century. There will be more tetrads, but they will not fall on the feast days of the Lord. Only this one. There will not be any more in this century. You can look at that sa nasa calendar. Okay? Is there a warning? God says, the moon is my faithful witness. And they're all happening during the feasts of the Lord. Is God announcing something? Is the moon the faithful witness of God, telling the people of the world, watch out, make holy convocations on these days? Now, quickly before I end, let's look at some of the tetrads that happened in the past and their significance to Israel. You know this, probably you have heard about this. In 1493-94, the tetrad was seen occurring on both on Passover and Tabernacles. 2 years in a row. So this was after King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella forced all of the Jews in the Spanish Empire to convert to Catholicism or be expulsed out. Thousands died, thousands converted out of fear, and there was a massive expulsion of the Jews. Some went to Russia, some joined in with Christopher Columbus, some went with Magellan, and some became heathen Jews. And many of them came to the Philippines. And you may not know that you are one of those heathen Jews. Okay? We just don't know. Next tetrad happened in the 20th century. There were two tetrads that took place in 1949 to 50, both on Passover and Tabernacles again, or also. And this was the year after Israel became a nation in 1948. And what happened in 1948? Immediately, the following day, they were at war. And the war kind of lasted until 1949. And God still warned them that there will be more wars that will happen. And it would happen. And there were still many wars that took place in Israel after the War of Independence. Second was seen in 1967, 68, again, Passover and Tabernacles. What happened here? Well, Egypt, Jordan, Syria declared war against Israel, and declared the annihilation of Israel. Though, Israel won the war. Israel won the war in 6 days. And I tell you, they won the war on Shabbat. Interesting. The war ended Shabbat. Started Tuesday, ended Shabbat. So they rested going to the seventh day. With me? Okay, so Israel won over the Golan Heights, Sinai Peninsula, ancient Jerusalem. They took the Temple Mount. And according to the rules of war, any nation that conquered you and you conquered those nations, they become yours. In a time of war, if there are any nations conquering you and you fight back, you conquer their land, that's yours, legally yours. And it's not an occupied territory. Hello. And they were saying, return the West Bank because the whole land is actually occupied. No, they won it by war. And Israel did not start the war. My challenge to everybody with another blood moon, this is what I would want you to do. Pray, fast, seek God. October 8th, as you watch the eclipse, don't watch it but pray, fast. Next week, Yom Kippur, fast. This church will be fasting from Tuesday to about Friday, Saturday. Okay, we'll end it on Saturday because we got services. We'll be busy that weekend, but God is going to do something else. But there is a good news, though. This is something I like you to see. While the world is will be plunged into darkness, I believe there will be a revival that will hit the world during this season of the blood moons. Let's analyze Joel again. Okay. 28, afterward I will pour out my spirit on all people. Your sons and daughters will prophesy. Your old men will dream dreams. Your young men will see visions. Even my servants, both men and women, I will pour out my spirit in those days. I will show wonders in the heavens and on earth. Okay, don't forget earth. On earth there will be blood, fire, and billows of smoke. Blood, there will be what? Many blood shed. There will be, what else? There will be fire, and that talks about war. And there will be billows of smoke, explosions from wars or volcanic explosions. So this is happening. Many volcanoes are erupting this time. The sun will be turned to darkness, the moon to blood before the coming of the great and terrible day of the Lord. Then 32, don't exclude this. Everyone who calls on the name of Jehovah, the Lord, will be saved. For on Mount Zion in Jerusalem there will be deliverance, as the Lord has said, among the survivors whom the Lord calls. This is from my own study. I have not read this from any of the blood moons, okay? The tetrads of the past that we have seen were all characterized by Reformation and revival in Christian history. 1493, 94, the Reformation was brewing up in Europe. This time, you find the birth. 1493 was the birth of a guy named William Tyndale. He translated successfully. Though he was not the first, he was the second, but he was able to publish the translation of the Bible to English. You know, doing that, you will be persecuted, you will be killed. John Wycliffe was banned for that. In fact, William Tyndale also suffered for it. He was burned at the stake for translating this. But that's part of the Reformation. Around this time also, Martin Luther was already a young boy of probably 10, 11 years old. So the Reformation was brewing up this time. 1949, 1950 is the healing revival. You got T.L. Osborne, guys like this, Oral Roberts, they were all born, John G. Lake, all these guys of the 1950s, of the healing revival. 1967, 68, some of you may not like this if your background is different, but it's the charismatic revival leading up to this day. Look at that within those seasons. And let me tell you, the final harvest, or the greatest harvest, may be around this time. And if this is the final time, we will see God moving in the world in the swiftest way to bring in the final harvest. Whoever will call on the name of the Lord shall be saved. Use this to preach the gospel, and you will see many souls coming. But this is also a time of revival. God is pouring His Spirit. 2016 is the start of a new Shemitah, another 7 years. Can it, I don't know, 2016, can it be the beginning of the Great Tribulation? I don't know. Will the Lord return before 2016? I don't know. We'll leave it all in the hands. But I tell you what, if you're familiar with the New World Order group, they would like to rule the world by 2016. By my study, I can clearly present that to you, but I don't have time. Okay? They plan to rule the world, put everything together by 2016. We just don't know. We'll look at things. But what we can do right now is to gather together, pray, seek the Lord. Amen? Don't brush this in your mind and just be a Greek thinker and say, kataon lang. Okay, let's have a little Hebrew thinking and say, yeah, there might be something God is really speaking, and we ought to prepare ourselves. There's nothing wrong about preparing yourself for the rapture, right? And I tell you, if there's more time for us to gather together, this is the moment. Amen. Did you learn something this morning? Hallelujah.